Welcome in everyone to Let's Talk Utes. Today we are going to be doing a Big 12 tier list, organizing the teams into tiers as we see them competitive for the 2024 football season. So let's jump right into it. Let's just go in the order they're
Let's
listed.
go straight in Arizona. What do we think, boys?
I think Arizona is really good this year. I love Noah Fafita. I think he is a dynamic playmaker. Tedero McMillan, I think is the best receiver in
Yeah,
the conference and maybe the best receiver in the country,
I'd
to be
agree.
Yeah,
honest.
he's damn good.
Their defense is much improved from the Pac-12 days, so I'm thinking a pretty high ranking here.
I agree with you. My only question is how much is the Jed Fish loss going to affect them? Because I really like him as a coach, and I just wonder. Obviously, they didn't lose a lot of their main contributors with Fafita and McMillan.
I think it was only maybe 3 starters and 8 total
They
players.
did lose their
Transfer
running back.
portal. They did,
He
yeah,
was
they did
pretty
lose their
good.
running back. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I still think they could be really good.
I agree. I think Tenero McMillan is a dog. He looks like he could be the best wide receiver in this country, maybe the top wide receiver taken in a draft in the coming year. Noah
yeah.
Fifita is awesome. He came in taking over for
They
Arizona
they
and
ha-
just completely turned that
they have some
organization around.
studs on defense too.
They're gonna
Yeah,
be really good.
they have a really good team.
I
I
have them as
like
an
them.
a high A.
I think
Like
I'm in A tier as well for
Yeah, I
Arizona.
would agree with that. Quarterback, I mean, there's no way around it. It's the most important position
Yeah,
on the team,
and they're
offense
top
or
two,
defense, and they have. I'm so sold on Fafita, so I think we all
yeah,
agree A
A
tier.
tier.
top two, top three in the conference
Yeah,
with quarterback for them.
I would say the only way they could have gotten to S to me is if they improved over the offseason, and I don't know if they
I
improved.
think they slightly digress
I agree.
slightly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Not by a much, but maybe a half step back.
I agree
Mm.
completely.
And you just never know with the new coach factor.
Yeah,
That's just the
they
thing.
have some question marks, but I think they have enough returning talent, and that returning talent is so good they have to be an A there
Yeah,
for
I
me.
mean, I think that's a totally fair ranking, to be
Agreed.
honest. Yeah. Okay, let's go into Arizona State. Arizona State is in year 2 of a rebuild with Kenny Dillingham, former Oregon
Hmm.
offensive coordinator, as head coach. Jaden Rashada transferred, so they lost their got the guy that was supposed to be their starter.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean the team just is not in a great spot right now. I don't think.
Definitely the
Agreed.
worst of the four corner states that came into the
Yeah,
Big 12, and that could kind of hurt them because they're going to be kind of in that grouping for a while. It's like, oh, they're supposed to be with
Hmm.
them, and they're just not going to be there right now. For me, losing Jaden Rashada and just continuing to kind of rebuild this year. It's definitely a rebuilding year. Like they could surprise some people with some big wins later in the year when it comes down to experience because it's Dillingham, right? I always forget
Yeah.
it.
Dillingham, yeah, Kenny
I
Dillingham.
really like him as a coach. They really watching that USC game last year where they went head to head with USC. I kind of fell in love with that program, like what they're going for, and I think Arizona State could be pretty good in the next few years, but this year it's
Yeah,
not for me. They're probably a low C, maybe even high D.
I think Dillingham has them on the right track, but I think they're going to be pretty bad this year.
For me, I think they're C. The only reason I don't go all the way down to D is because of Dillingham. I think they'll win a few games that maybe they don't have. I mean, their talent's not that bad. Their recruiting's not like that bad when you look at it. So I would put them as C. I think they're on a better trajectory than they have been. It feels like post Jaden Daniels leaving, they just haven't had direction really, or really a hope to compete. I don't
Yeah,
know. They're not going to be great next year, though.
I'm going D personally. So what do you guys vote?
I'm a C here. I think there's a few programs that are coming up that probably belong in D more than Arizona State. And so for me, I have them at
For me,
C.
I'm kind of thinking if they're not a D, who is a D? Like
Yeah,
this is just
that's
next
what
year.
I'm
They're going
saying.
to be
So,
bad.
like, I totally believe in the direction they're
Yeah,
going as a
but
program. I
next
just don't think
year,
they're good next year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going D for me.
I think
Okay.
yeah,
Looks like 2 out of 3 of us have
that's
D.
perfectly fine. Baylor, it's an interesting one because I feel like they're going to be better than they were last year, but not by much.
I think that Dave Aranda has a lot of pressure on him this
Yeah,
year. I think that he got turned up last year with the kind of subpar season, and I don't think he can afford to do that again. So he's going to
agreed.
be
Yeah,
coaching for his job, I think.
it hasn't been the worst recruiting for them either. I can't recall their exact rankings, but it's not terrible. Like they have some talent coming back as well. And I think Aranda's a fine coach, maybe not the absolute best. For me, I think they're a C tier team. I'd put them above Arizona State, but I don't think they can break into B tier for me.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. For me, they were on the same tier as Arizona State, so I have them in C. I feel
Gotcha.
like they're going to be a little bit better than Arizona State this year. they looked a lot better as the season went on for me. Watching them at the beginning
Mhm.
against Texas State
Yeah.
and where's it North Texas?
Texas State.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't mix those two up.
Honestly,
And then Utah, obviously, they didn't look very good, but as the season progressed, I liked them a little bit more. So I have them at C. So
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go C as well. I don't think they project to be like a total walkover, but I also don't think they project to be in the mix for any real conference
yeah.
race. So I think C is the right ranking.
yeah,
Agreed.
bottom 6 in the Big 12 for me.
Yeah,
Like
that's what I would say. Yeah, they're not in the top 10 in the Big 12, but they're also not
Hmm.
as bad as maybe the bottom feeders. Okay, BYU coming up next, coming off of a 5-7 season last year, first season in the Big 12. Last year their depth kind of got exposed, top end talent kind of got exposed. Recruiting was pretty down in the dumps. Pick Six Previews has them ranked 70th out of 70th for Power Five recruiting over the last 5 years, which is obviously
Hmm.
not where you want to be. I think they took significant steps back with losses to the NFL and also losses to the portal, and I don't think they adequately replaced them. BYU is my pick for the worst team in the Big 12, so I have them in the bottom of D tier.
Agreed. I mean, they're probably the weakest quarterback room of any Power Five team.
yeah,
I mean, not even probably. I would say almost
Yeah,
surely they
almost
are.
definitely.
that's what I was gonna say.
Slovis was the best quarterback on their roster last year, and even he ranked dead last in QBR.
In
When
the Big 12,
Retzlaff
yeah.
replaced him, he was even worse than that, believe it or not. And he's actually slightly ahead in the QB battle preseason for who's going to start for them versus Gary Bohannon.
And Trenton Bourguet seems to factor into that as well, which, Utah fans are familiar with him playing for Arizona State last year in the game we won 55-3.
Yeah.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement of the player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I don't see them being good next year. They didn't really get any good transfers or have a great recruiting class of anyone that I'm seeing that's like, oh, he's going to contribute immediately.
For like a 5-7 team that was one of the luckiest teams by metric last year, like how do they improve?
Yeah.
You know,
they were bad last year and they just got worse.
exactly.
Agreed.
And it's hard to do that and to see any light on the end of the tunnel at this
Yeah.
moment. I mean, Kalani Sitake right after David Aranda is probably the next coach on the hot seat for in the Big 12.
Hmm.
Um, he has to really show, especially with Jay Hill in the defensive coordinator spot for BYU, where he's right there. They can just pop him right in the head coach spot.
Hmm.
So we'll see what BYU can do. I see them as a bottom feeder in the Big 12 for the next coming years until something happens with recruiting, and it's going to be hard with obviously
Yeah.
all their honor coach situations and stuff
I
like that.
do think it would be a mistake to fire Sataki. I don't think they can upgrade the coaching staff overall without Sataki.
Well, I mean, I think they got Jay Hill waiting in the wings. I mean, I think that's the plan. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
so
going
if
to be Jay Hill.
if Sataki can't produce at least maybe another 5-win season, or I wouldn't even be surprised if they fire him if they're not bowl eligible, which I think is crazy. As
I think he'll get one more year. Just
yeah,
I
with the
agree
with
with
the
you.
with the P5 transition, I think no matter what, he gets one more
that's a fair point.
I just think a team that's already down in the dumps, firing your head coach is just like another red flag for recruits. It's just going to make them even want to go there less.
year. Yeah, and like that's the real issue here is they're just not getting talent in the
Yeah.
portal or from the high school ranks. It's just not happening for them, and that is the biggest issue. If you can't recruit, you can't win.
Yeah. So I think
BYU,
we all agree. We all had D tier.
yeah, G tier. Cincinnati, that's an interesting one because I feel like they're in a similar spot to Arizona State a little bit for me personally. Um, I feel like they're on the come up a little bit, but they're still kind of in that rebuild phase where it's like it's interesting. Like, where do we put them? For me, I really do. I like Cincinnati. I mean, obviously they have the history of getting to the college football playoff. That's awesome. Losing your head coach after that, I can't remember his name. I think he went to Indiana or
I think he
Wisconsin.
went to Wisconsin, Luke Fickle.
Yeah, Luke
They
Fickle.
hired Satterfield, I
Yeah,
believe.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I like Satterfield. I'm not super familiar with Cincinnati. I'm not gonna lie. One of the newer Big 12 schools. Um, I mean, Pixel Previews has them around as Arizona State and Baylor. I think they're a little bit better than Arizona State, probably a little bit worse than Baylor. I mean, I have them low C, high D, if for me.
I think that they're bringing back enough that I think that realistic improvement could be made on their 3-win season last year. Like I
Yeah.
think that they were good enough in the transfer portal and good enough with I think coaching staff additions and also retaining some key players from last year. That I don't think they'll be quite as bad as last year.
Yeah, 3 wins is dark, but from that point, it's almost only up from there.
Yeah, I don't. Their schedule isn't oppressive this year. It's not that bad, and so I think for me, I would personally go probably low C tier here. I think I would go low,
Yeah,
behind Baylor in C tier for me.
Their run game could be really good. Looking at the pick six previews, I mean they have
Top 20 rushing offense.
Yeah, Corey Kiner had 100 plus yards this year, 1,000 yard season. He's returning. Their whole offensive line is returning, which is really big. I mean, I think their offense could be pretty good. Hopefully, it's not as one sided as it's projecting at the moment. But
they just need to fix the defense. 70th out of 70th as far as Power 5, according to Pick 6 previews.
Yeah.
That is just not going to cut it.
It's hard to win with that.
It's hard to win with that.
And we're going to be using Pick 6 previews for all these, probably for the remainder of the season.
Resource, you know.
A ton of awesome stats, awesome rankings, just super concise, clear to see.
Go to support. If you want to learn anything about Power 5 or just college football, go support him. He's dope.
Okay, so I vote for bottom of C tier. What do you vote for, Landon?
That's fine. That's kind of where I have them. Around Arizona State and Baylor, and I had Arizona State in C, so it works perfect.
Okay, Colorado. We are now at, I think, probably the most talked about Big 12 team, I would say.
For sure.
Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, the whole...
Travis Hunter. Shiloh.
Yeah, Shiloh Sanders. The whole thing going on there has made Colorado, I think, quite a, I would say, visible team, maybe. Maybe not a good team, but a visible team.
Yeah, agreed.
So what are your guys' thoughts about Colorado?
I think Colorado's gotten better. Like I was saying before, Shedeur Sanders is a really good quarterback, which is the most important position.
Yeah.
For me, I have Colorado in the A or B tier. I think they've improved across the board, just overall. I mean, the defense was so bad, it's hard to not improve from that. They've had a good transfer class. Recruiting's been pretty good. I think Colorado is going to be better than they were last year. For sure.
I do think recruiting has improved. And yeah, like they only won, what did they win? 3 games last year? 4 games?
But they won 1 conference game only.
Well, see, 4 games last year. That's actually pretty good.
And
coming from a 1-win season the year prior, 1-11, to get 4 wins in your first year, that's improvement. Deion Sanders did a good job.
2 of those 4 wins were, I think 3 of those 4 wins were Power 5 too.
Yeah. So if they were bowl eligible this year, I would consider that a successful season.
Agreed.
I think that with their additions they've added and natural improvement, bowl eligibility would be a great step in the right direction. Landon had them split between A and B. I had them split between B and C. So I can agree with B if that's where we're going.
Yeah, I have them at B. I think their biggest question mark all last season, and I think it's going to be this season as well, was their offensive line. I mean, when Shedeur Sanders had time, he was incredible.
He tore people up.
Yeah. But he just didn't have time. He was getting sacked so many times throughout the season.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But they bolstered that offensive line with a lot of transfers coming in from some Power 5, for some really good G5 teams, and then also obviously the number 1 recruit, offensive tackle recruit in sorry.
And so you just look, their transfer portal rank was number 1 in 2023 and number 8 in 2024.
Yeah.
That is significant improvement there. Like you can make fun of them all you want, but that's bringing in serious talent. That really is.
Yeah, Jordan Seaton was the number 1 recruit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Lost it for a second.
Yeah, see, I could not go lower than B for Colorado. I just think they're substantially more dangerous than a Baylor or Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I would have gone very top of C tier if I did choose C tier, but I think B tier is a fair ranking, I think.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah, I think they're one of those teams that they could have 3 wins or 10. That's what can happen with this team for me. I think that's
kind of 3 wins is out of the question this year. They'll have more than that.
Well, for sure. Yeah. It's the worst of the worst scenario.
If they're bowl eligible, I think they do.
I think they do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think B is a great spot for Colorado.
I think C would be slightly disappointing.
Slightly disappointing
in my
for you?
opinion.
Yeah, see, we just have a slightly different...
I think they have 7.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Kansas next. Kansas...
It's all about Jalen Daniels' health.
Yes.
I actually really like him as a player. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy yet.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think there are a lot of individual pieces there, but as I look at the overall team, I wonder what the true level is there. Because I think that they were really good last year, and they didn't really as far as I can remember, have a really bad loss. Their losses were to Kansas State, not a bad loss. Texas Tech, that's like questionable, but that's not a bad loss. Oklahoma State, not a bad loss. Texas, not a bad loss. So they really beat the teams they were supposed to and kind of lost to the teams that they, were expected to lose to. And so I think that it's interesting. I think for me, I believe in them enough. I think they have enough dynamic playmakers. I would go bottom of A tier, I think, for them.
Hmm.
For me, the big question obviously is Jaden Daniels' health.
Yeah.
But that offense with him is electric. I think
Oh, I
seventh in the
agree.
country last year, according to Pick Six previews. They had their rush offense was incredible, 206 yards per game. Like,
Mhm.
can they keep that up?
It's
Like,
yeah.
can they continue to do that? That's the biggest question mark.
Yeah. As with a lot of Big 12 teams, offense fantastic, defense
Yeah.
extremely questionable. I
But
think that's where it goes
I
wrong.
will say, as far as Big 12 goes, they're ranked 64th for total defense and 67th for scoring defense, which is how much their team's scoring. That's not that bad
That's not that
for
bad.
Big 12
It's not
teams.
terrible. Yeah, that's not
That's like
horrible.
upper
Middle
middle
of
of
the
the
pack.
pack.
Yeah.
And their offense graded out very well with 17th, 34.8 points per game.
Yeah.
And
See,
then their yards per play at number 6, 7.2 yards per play.
see their offense was electric. And see for me, I think they're a clear step above Colorado. And so I
I
have to
agree
go
too.
A tier there.
I
Mhm.
agree.
If Colorado's B tier, I have to go A tier for
Yeah.
Kansas.
Well, and I love
I do
Lance
think
Leopold. He has changed his program completely
yeah.
around. He's completely made him to the point where Kansas is a
Mhm.
respectable football
Yeah,
program, and that's hard
Yeah.
to do.
and didn't leave Kansas for Michigan State when there was
Yeah.
rumors that he had the opportunity to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what do you guys think as far as the A tier? Arizona, Kansas first. I have Arizona.
I like Arizona.
Arizona as well.
Arizona above.
I think
Yes.
they have just more talent overall than
Yeah,
Kansas does.
I,
They're a
I
little
agree.
deeper.
Yeah, and like I
Well,
just trust Fafita and his health more than I
Yeah.
trust Jalen Daniels. Frankly, I just think he's better than.
I did.
and 50
I
does
was talking
weapons as well.
myself into Kansas there, though. Looking a little deeper at their stats, that was better than I expected.
They're very good. Yeah, I think they're a very solid team. Pick Six Previews has them ranked number 8 in the Big 12, and I think that is undershooting them.
I think that's a little low.
I think that's
Their
undershooting them.
stats look a little too good to be number 8.
Yeah, that's undershooting them in my opinion.
Well, last year Kansas's 4 losses, 3 of them came by 1 score, and then the other
Well,
loss was Texas.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
read through those losses. None of those losses were what you could consider bad losses.
They were
They
all
were
against good
against
teams,
good teams.
and
Yeah.
a lot of them were 1 score games.
I think Kansas is really good this year, and it wouldn't really surprise me if they were in the Big 12 title game. Like I think that
Yeah.
that's on the cards.
I mean,
That's like a reasonable expectation. I think.
they missed quite a lot of the really good teams as well in the Big 12. They don't have an Oklahoma State under or Utah.
Yeah.
They're probably their biggest game is going to be at Kansas State. They can come out a win there. I mean, they're probably in the playoff. They're probably in the championship game.
Yeah, so moving on to Houston. I'm looking at Houston's stats right now. They did not rank very well for either offense or defense last season. 90th in scoring offense with 23.7 points per game, and then 108th in scoring defense, allowing
Yeah.
31.5 points per game.
I feel very similarly about Houston as I did about BYU, where I think that they both really struggled with the Power Five transition. Their depth wasn't ready. Their top end talent wasn't
And
ready.
neither are recruiting well right
Neither
now
are
either.
recruiting well right now. Well, actually, Houston is recruiting better than BYU, but still not
Yeah.
incredibly good. I do actually like the Willie Fritz hire. I feel like that is a pretty shrewd hire to get a proven big time coach that was at Florida State previously, I believe, a little bit ago. Someone that has experience as a program builder. I like that hire. I think that's in the right direction. I think Houston has an advantage because they have a big market. They have a
That's
right
true.
recruiting pool right next to them. It's an attractive university, I believe. Like people would want to play for that.
Yeah.
They're not going to be good this year. They just aren't. They don't
Yes.
have the talent.
Yeah.
But I think that
So
they have a bright future.
I think Houston's biggest question mark obviously is going to be the health of Donovan Smith, their quarterback. I mean, he was really good last year for them. I mean, for the first year as a P5 in his 12 starts, I mean, he was, fourth in touchdowns. He led the league in passing attempts, third in completion percentage. He only had 13 interceptions. I mean, only 13. That's quite a lot, but I mean, we'll see how that works. But Fritz, like it says, he's a run heavy guy,
Yeah.
and so we'll see. Maybe can Donovan Smith keep that up if he's healthy? He tore his labrum, so it might not be the case.
Yeah.
So
I am a little bit higher on Houston than I think consensus, and so
Me
I
too.
would have them at the top of D tier because I feel like they do have a quarterback that I trust, and they have a coach that I think has experience winning games.
Mhm.
So I would put them
I
top
would
of D
agree with
tier to
that.
me.
They're one of my surprises this year. I think they're going to be a little bit better than everybody thinks. And if we're talking about jerseys, they're an S tier team. Those
true.
Yeah,
baby
awesome
blue
stuff.
They look
jerseys
so
are
good.
freaking incredible. I just got to say it. They're the best jerseys I've seen in a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else have anything on Houston, or should we
No,
keep
I think
diving?
D is a perfect spot for them. High D.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. I am a lot of people have picked them last. I am a little higher on them than that. And I think that they're, yeah.
I think having the new coach could really rejuvenate this program and they
Yeah.
can continue they can surprise some people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's talk about Iowa State, which is the next team on the list. Iowa State is one of those programs that is just, they're always around. They're always around.
Mm-hmm.
Last year they went 7-6, I believe, last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really terrible losses to Memphis and Miami, Ohio. Yeah, that's just those are just two that you can't do. Especially if you're looking for your first, 10-win season in your entire program's history. I think that they are a super solid team. They're like a very middle of the pack team that maybe gives some top teams some scares kind of team
Yeah.
to me. Someone that maybe plays up to their opponent, plays down to their opponent a little bit.
So they're going to stay the same.
Yeah,
Stay for their history of the program.
I know. I like them as like a frisky team, but I'm not sure that they really have what it
Yeah.
takes to make noise at like the very top of the conference.
I
I
do
think
think
their defense is among the best in the conference. Looking at Pick Six previews here, their adjusted defense was the only top 25 Big 12
Interesting.
defense last year. Yeah, so they were the best of the Big 12 last year, graded defensive wise. So I think that's
Not
a
counting
strength they
Utah
have going.
though,
Not
from
counting
last year.
Utah.
Yeah,
Only teams that played in the Big 12 last year.
I mean, I really like Becht as well, Rocco Becht. I mean, coming in as a freshman last year, he kind of unlocked his passing game later on in the season. I think he was number 2 nationally behind Noah Fafita for freshmen. And I think in like completion percentage, just among quarterback
yeah.
rating. And so I think he could be pretty good. I mean, if you look at like we're talking about Pick Six previews again, shout out to him and his stuff. But they were for the offense, they ranked 16th in the nation, 12th for passing. And so, I mean, they have a good passing game. Their defense is pretty good. Can they continue that? Or they're going to be playing a little bit tougher, steeper competition coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And so it all depends. They have a pretty grueling schedule this year.
yeah. I love their running back. Some Abu Sama. He is freaking good. I watched that Kansas State game where he had like 3 or 4 touchdowns and he was incredible.
Another thing to think about Iowa State, they're returning 20 starters.
Yes, I thought about
That's
that as well.
unbelievable.
Mhm.
They're only losing 2 starters. That's crazy.
This isn't an Iowa State point, but I do think in general, returning starters is a slightly overrated stat because like your starters have to be good to make it good that they're
exactly.
returning.
Depends how
Like,
good they are.
Yeah, and like I think most of Iowa State starters are good, but I don't think many of them are like elite.
That wasn't against Iowa State. That's just in general.
That's just in general. That's
Yeah.
a general point. I'm not talking about Iowa State.
I do think Iowa State probably has the toughest last 6-game stretch in the conference. I mean, they have UCF, Texas Tech, Kansas, Cincinnati's a little bit of under there,
At
but then
Utah,
at
and then
Utah, then
Kansas
Kansas State. So I mean, they could. I mean,
it's not it's I don't think it's that tough of a schedule. I think I think it's a pretty middle of the pack schedule for me. Okay. Okay, so I think Iowa State, I just trust them a little more than Colorado. I would put them in B above Colorado, I think.
For me, I would put them in B behind Colorado because I think Colorado just has a little more talent than they do in terms of
What do you
transfer.
think, Ethan?
I'm with Landon here. I think
B behind Colorado?
right behind Colorado. I think Colorado has a little bit more of a boom than
Right.
Yeah,
than Iowa State.
for a little more, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, Colorado could make us look really dumb or really smart.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think Iowa State's more central. They're going. That's what they are. Like they're going to be middle of the
Yeah.
road. They're going to have 8 wins. They're going to play tough games. They're going to really play hard against those really good teams. Like you said, they're going to play up to their opponent and down to their opponent.
Yeah.
And so with Colorado, that boom is definitely
Okay.
enticing.
Let's talk about Kansas State. This is a great team. They were picked number 2 in the Big 12 media poll, very close behind Utah at number 1. They are returning a lot of great players. They did lose their starting quarterback, Will Howard, replacing him with, highly thought of young player Avery Johnson.
Mhm.
They got Dylan Edwards transfer from Colorado, who's a really, really strong running
Yeah.
back. They have a great coach, great defense. They have a lot going for them. What do you guys think about them?
I really like Kansas State this year. For me, they are one of the two teams in the Big 12 that can make the college football playoff this year. Their schedule, they probably have one of the easier schedules in the Big 12, missing out on Arizona in conference play, Utah in conference play, and I think they don't
No,
even
they do play Arizona week
not in
3.
conference play though.
Oh, not in conference play though.
Right.
Yes,
It's
it's a
kind of like Utah's with
Yeah,
Baylor.
yes,
exactly.
Just the new conference realignment has messed up schedule slightly.
Yeah.
yes, and then they have Oklahoma State coming to them. I think that's a big
Right.
advantage. If Kansas State can continue to
Yeah, that's not a bad
improve,
schedule at all.
if they can continue to improve, and Avery Johnson is who everyone thinks he is, they could be really, really good. That's our biggest
Yeah,
question mark.
to the Avery Johnson, I wouldn't consider myself like an Avery Johnson skepticist, but I am cautious about it. We see this a lot with young players where they're immediately going to be incredible. They're going to dominate. They're going to play like a veteran right away. And like a lot of times it just doesn't happen. It does make me slightly nervous that Will Howard transferred and he's now the starter at Ohio State. Because
Yeah.
that's just like objectively an upgrade. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. Like I think that everyone is expecting him to like easily surpass what Will Howard did last year for
Mm.
Kansas State, and I'm just not certain that's the case. I just want to be fair with expectations on Avery Johnson because I don't want to set him on this high pedestal and then just totally crush him if he doesn't meet that.
Agreed.
I'm
We were,
gonna
you were
give him space to grow.
you were talking about a little bit yesterday. We were kind of having a discussion about Avery Johnson specifically, actually, and he was saying like Avery Johnson, I mean, obviously the dude can run the freaking ball and he has legs like no other. Can his passing game improve? That was one of my bigger
Yeah,
question
can
marks
he
as
be
well.
accurate enough?
Yes.
Can
He has a
read the
good
field
He has
better?
a great arm, but
Yeah,
He
can
takes
he
a lot
read
of
the
risks,
field?
though.
Yes, exactly. And
Even watching his highlights, a lot of the pass highlights are into very tight windows where it's like, wow. I mean, it worked, but should you
like
really
arm
have
talent.
thrown that?
Yeah, just insane
Like,
arm
is
talent.
that like was that really the right read? That guy was
Yeah.
pretty much completely covered, and he just made a play.
The player he reminds me so much of is DTR for UCLA, who
Mhm.
graduated a couple years ago. DTR was an incredible college quarterback, super good, but it took him a couple years to
2 to
figure out
3
his
years to
rhythm, athleticism. And I just want to be fair to Avery Johnson because I feel
Mhm.
like if we set him up on this huge pedestal and then he underachieves, everyone's going to kill him, and I don't want to do that. I want to give him time to grow. I want to let him progress.
I
in his
do
own
think
way.
I'm a little bit higher on Avery Johnson than you guys are. I think he's already surpassed what a lot of like brand new quarterbacks would be able to level they would be able to play at.
Yeah, well, I think his athleticism.
Yes,
Is
the
yeah.
running ability alone, he's going to be at least an average college quarterback. Like that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't improve, he already is at least just average.
Yeah, Kansas State also had one of the best defenses in the Big 12. I
Yeah.
think that's worth mentioning. But they did also lose two of their top playmakers on offense. So, we'll have to see who rises up to replace their top pass catchers, Phillip Brooks and Ben
Yeah.
Sinnott.
And yeah, they did lose Khaled Duke and Kobe Savage, which is two of their best
Yeah.
defensive players.
Well, and Connor, is it Connor or Cooper Beebe? They're a really good offensive linemen. He got drafted
Yeah.
this year. Yeah, I apologize for not knowing his first name, but yeah, he was extremely good, one of the best in the entire Big 12,
Mm.
and he left. So they're kind of rebuilding the offensive line on the fly as well. So I do think there are more question marks than people think, but the raw talent of this team is just so high. I think it's
Yeah, I
really
mean, last year looking 37.1 points per game, that ranks 10th overall. And then in terms of scoring defense, only allowing 21 points per game, that ranks 27th,
yeah,
which is really strong numbers. And I think honestly they likely got better with just another year of development for Avery.
yeah. I'm just worried about especially the offensive line specifically.
Yeah.
Just rebuilding that is always tough, and sometimes it doesn't come together as quickly as you think. Especially with playing a team like Arizona Week 3 that
Yeah.
has a good defensive line and linebacker group. They're going to have to be ready right away. So for me, I know I'm slightly lower on consensus in Kansas State, but I have them at the bottom of A.
I think I have to put them above Kansas for me at least.
For me, they are, like I said earlier, they're one of the two teams I think have the chance to make the playoff.
So you would have them top of
For
it.
for me, if you have a chance to make a playoff, you're an S tier program. I have them in S tier, but I completely understand your guys'
Okay.
reasoning why you have them in
So
A.
I think
For me, it's
Average would
top
be
of A.
average is probably top of A because the tier break is probably bigger than ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So top of A for Kansas State.
I like that. I feel good about
I
that.
mean, I can't really quibble. I mean, Arizona and Kansas State to me are all so close. They're
Yes,
so close.
yes.
Yeah.
I
Like
think they're all really good
they're
schools.
probably within a game. All three of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
programs.
And like
To
it
be fair.
really, I mean, injuries are going to pretty much determine the standings there. I
Because
think,
if
you know?
Avery Johnson is who we think he is, they're going to be great.
Yeah.
But if he's not, they're probably going to lose 2 or 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like that's so
Their schedule does set up favorably, though. I would not be surprised if they made it to the Big 12 championship.
exactly.
You know. Okay, let's move on. Let us talk about Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, of course, last year was in the Big 12 title game where they got kind of decimated by Texas, I would say. I think that's a fair put. They also kind of had a lot of QB rotating, using 3 QBs for the first month of the season, which included a blowout home loss to South Alabama.
Egregious.
Before they finally settled on Bowman as the starter.
Mm-hmm.
Bowman was not good last year. The offense was good because Ollie Gordon
Yeah.
and the offensive line were really good. But I can't say I was impressed with, what Bowman brought to the table.
I think Oklahoma State is a team, especially as Utah fans, that Utah fans have looked at a lot and kind of done a lot of digging into their roster because obviously Utah's first Big 12 game is going to be at Oklahoma State. I'm not as high on Oklahoma State as other people are. I think their team has some pretty big flaws and their offense is a bit one dimensional, while their defense is worse than many teams in the Big 12, in my opinion.
This is a kind of an example of what I was saying previously. They're returning a lot of production, but frankly, I just don't think the production they're returning on defense is any good. Like I think their defense was bad, and they're returning production on defense. Like just because it's returning doesn't mean they improved as players. I'm sure they did over the offseason.
Like they had the 91st ranked scoring defense
Yeah,
and the 125th ranked total defense. They were allowing an enormous 442 yards per game.
yeah,
That's bad.
And so, like, how I kind of view it is a team with a bad defense and a quarterback I don't trust. I can't really put them into A tier for me. Like, they're B tier for me.
They're very one dimensional.
Because like a quarterback I don't trust and a defense that isn't good, like that's just not a good team.
You can't have 15 touchdowns to 14 interceptions.
Yeah,
I just you can't trust that
yeah.
offensively.
To me, Oklahoma State is probably my pick to underachieve the most in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're getting set up because they kind of had a little bit of a fluke run to the Big 12 title game where, I mean, let's be honest, they were not the second best team in the conference.
No.
I'm not even sure if they were in the top 4 last year. And they made it, based on tiebreakers. And, like I think that they're a great program. I'm just not certain that this team is that good.
I do think Gundy, if any coach can take a team like this to the conference championship game, is Mike Gundy.
Yeah.
And I mean, like we're University of Utah fans. Mike Gundy, Kyle Whittingham, they're identical.
Yeah.
And so like if they're anything like Witt, I trust you. And so I mean, if he can do it again, that'd be really really on him. I mean, I agree completely. I'm not as big on Oklahoma State. Bowman is mid at best.
Mm-hmm.
Ollie Gordon is very good, but they're going to be playing better competition. I'm sorry.
But like, would you rather have the best running back in the country or the 15th best quarterback?
I'd rather have the 15th
exactly.
I'd rather have the 15th best quarterback. And like, as good as Gordon is, he's still just a running back. Just
and there are
least valuable positions.
There are question marks with Ollie Gordon. Is he going to be able to play the first 3 games? I mean, Gundy did say he'll be playing, but things could change. It's a very interesting situation. How well is gonna happen? Don't want to dive too much into it, but I think that does play in a factor the start of their season.
I think if they do meet expectations, it's going to be because that offensive line is so good. I do love what they have on
pass protection. They're very solid. One of the best units in the country.
Yes, I love what they have on that offensive line.
Yeah, so I think they're top of B.
That's where I would put them.
I'm top of B, last of A, so I'm fine with whatever in that range.
Yeah, see, to me, I just don't think they have the talent of the teams in A. To me, they're just B. They're just the top.
Their defense really holds them back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that defense is not getting talked about enough. It's not.
It was so bad. Yeah, like, Swiss cheese. Holes everywhere.
Yes.
TCU.
Okay. TCU, obviously, they were in the national title game in 2022, getting destroyed by Georgia. then they kind of had a rough bounce back season, 5-7 last year. Still one of the most talented rosters based on recruiting
Mhm.
rankings in the Big 12. Um, I think that 5-7 last year was pretty poor. They lost some close games.
I will say, in defense, if you think about 2 years ago, their playoff run, they were 6-1 in one-score games. That luck just flipped on them this year. They were 0-4 in one-score
Yeah,
games.
exactly.
And I do feel like a couple of years ago they did overachieve. I mean, winning all those one-score games,
Yeah,
it was crazy. And so I don't think they were as good in the playoff run year as people may have thought. And
and
I
they weren't
don't
as
think they
bad
were
last year.
as bad last year as people would have thought.
I totally agree with you on both counts for sure. I think that TCU is being a little slept on because of the season last year. I still think that they're going to be one of the toughest games in the whole Big 12. I think that their quarterback,
Josh Hoover.
yeah, Josh Hoover is pretty freaking good. I
I
thought he had
liked
some good games last year.
he struggled with his
He's young.
interception.
He's young.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he struggled with some interceptions. Of course, like the two big picks in the end zone against Texas Tech. That's a big question mark. Can he limit his turnovers?
yeah,
But watching him, I really liked what I saw later on in the season. I mean, he had pretty much the exact same stats as Chandler Morris, and he played the tougher
yeah.
competition
Yeah, he faced
without
the
the
harder
QB
part of
wet
the schedule as
Yeah,
reps.
well.
and an offense when they switched from Morris to Hoover, they went from 32nd to 25th out of Power 5 teams, and passing wise, they went from 45th to 30th. So they improved significantly in both categories once Hoover took over and was the guy.
Their defense isn't terrible, but it's not good. They're gonna be okay.
It's a mid Big 12 defense, I would say.
Yeah, and so it's like, can that make some strides to win you some games? Because that's gonna be the case. Like the defense is gonna have to step up
Yeah,
with a young quarterback,
yeah.
with tendency to be turnover prone. And
So
so, if
yeah,
can the defense step up and win them some games? Who knows? That's my biggest question mark for TCU. But if Josh Hoover can limit his turnovers and continue to be as productive as he does in the passing
Mhm.
game, they could be a surprising
I
bounce
almost
back
want to
year
keep
this year.
TCU in A just based on the talent they have.
see,
Either back of A or top of
well, see,
C.
I'm going top of B. For me, TCU is my overachiever. Oklahoma State was my underachiever that I'm picking.
Yeah,
ECU is my overachiever that I'm
I
picking.
agree
That's
with
interesting.
that.
I have them top of C
You
just
have them
because
top of C.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not a believer in their defense with the young quarterback,
Yeah.
but I mean, I can completely understand they could be pretty dang good. I'm fine with a B ranking if we
What do
want
we
to.
think then? If you have top of C behind
We
Oklahoma
both have
State,
top of B.
yeah, I have top of B.
So maybe I
You have top of C. So maybe
behind Oklahoma State.
behind Oklahoma State then.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Well, let's
I
put
could
them
see
behind
that.
Oklahoma State. And it feels like the average of our
Yeah,
rankings probably. Okay. I
Texas
do
Tech.
I do think TCU is better than Colorado this year.
No, I
I
can.
do.
I
I think
definitely
they
can
are.
see
I
that.
think they have more
I
talent.
do as well.
Okay.
Obviously, that big game last year that shocked everyone with that Colorado win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Texas Tech is interesting to me. Their offense and defense, their offense was ranked 64th overall, and their defense was 63rd. So they're pretty comparable on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
Like you couldn't say either
they're just an
is like a
average team
glaring
on both
weakness.
sides. Yeah.
Yes.
they struggled on the defensive side for rush defense. They allowed 160 yards per game.
Yeah.
And
I
facing teams like the Oklahoma State and Arizona, Kansas State, they're going to be run heavy as well. I don't know if they play Kansas State actually. They don't.
Yeah, I mean Texas Tech coming into the year had, top 10 hype. People were picking them as the Big 12
Yeah.
dark horse last year to win the Big 12, to be the best team. But then things just went downhill extremely quickly. They lost to Oregon, they lost to Wyoming. Tough, tough loss at Wyoming. That
Lost to BYU.
Yeah.
lost to
I will
BYU. It
say,
just wasn't great.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed with how Texas Tech played Oregon.
Yes.
They played Oregon very well.
Yeah, see, yeah, for me, yeah, I think that this team is probably a little bit better than their 6-6 record. I believe they were 6-6. No, they were 7-6 last year. Okay, so they were 7-6 last year. I think they're probably maybe a win better than that on average. Probably 8-4, I would say, was what their talent level of their team
Yeah.
was. They had a lot of quarterback injuries. That's something that I remember about their season is they just couldn't get anyone healthy, and the options they had to replace were simply not good.
Well, I mean, look at Tyler. I can't.
Tyler Show,
Show
yeah,
his game against Oregon. He looked pretty good. I'm like, wow, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah.
He had some dog to him. He was really good. And then obviously getting injured game 4 kind of really hurt their season. And again, like Tanner said, just injury after injury to their quarterback position really hurt them. Um,
I like their coach, Joey McGuire. I think he's pretty good. I think that he has the program, I think, on the right track. They're building slowly. They're recruiting actually better than you would expect, I think. They've recruited actually pretty well. 5-year rank 37 on average. That's not
not
bad.
bad.
That's not bad at all.
One thing, they did lose 4 defensive linemen and 4 defensive backs.
Yeah.
And this is the best defense Texas Tech had in a while. They were very offense heavy. That concerns me a little bit.
And they lost 6 receivers to the transfer
Yeah.
portal. They did add 4, and they all graded higher than the top 4 that left.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe they maybe it was addition by subtraction on that in that scenario. But losing 6 pass, having a completely new wide receiver room coming into the season is going to be tough for them as well.
Yeah.
For me, they're better than Baylor, but they're still C tier. That's why
I agree.
That's where I
Yeah, they're like the fringe for me. Like they could be
more
B. They
questions than someone like an Iowa State.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely agree. I think that's firm. UCF is a fun one.
No, I love what UCF
I like
has done.
UCF a lot as
They've
well.
honestly picked up their recruiting extremely well. They have good fan support. You see them on Twitter all the time.
KJ Jefferson.
KJ Jefferson, extremely good transfer, replacing, I believe, John Rice Plumlee last year as their quarterback. I think that they've got some serious talent, and that is a game that I think is no one on the Big 12 schedule is going to look forward. Look at how bad they beat Oklahoma State last year. They destroyed them.
Destroyed them. If you're a bad team, you're not doing that.
No. They completely destroyed them.
I mean, UCF. It's funny because they're projected to be a top 4, top 5 team. For me, they're my overachievers. I think they're going to be very, very good this year.
Yeah, you could convince me of a lot of things for UCF.
UCF is just a powerhouse, ready to blow up.
UCF lost. Let me see here.
Like I was saying, like when I was saying UCF, they're a prime spot. They're in Orlando, Florida, one of the biggest recruiting hub in the country.
See,
they're right there in a really prime spot to be excellent, and they have the style.
Newcomer that easily was the best in the Big 12 next year.
Yes.
Of the G5 editions, BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, they were the best by far.
They lost 3 games by 4 combined points.
Yeah, that's brutal.
They could easily have 3 more wins last season.
Well, see, they went 6-7, but the Pick Six game grader had them 31st out of 75 teams, so above average.
And so people who don't know what that is, it basically is a grade based on how good your team is and how good your opponent is and how well you're supposed to play, how much you're supposed to win or lose by.
Yeah.
And so basically what you're saying is UCF played really well. They overachieved.
Yes. They had the 35th recruiting class in the nation, the 3rd in the Big 12, and this 22nd overall trend. Gus Malzahn can recruit down there.
Yes.
He can freaking recruit.
I do think, kind of going back to what Lana was saying about 3 losses between 4 points, one of those losses was pretty brutal against Baylor, a 28-point collapse.
Blew a lot of leads. But I think that's just growth and development that needs to happen.
Yeah, but I mean their schedule was brutal last year. That's a tough schedule, like what they had. And let me check out their schedule this year.
Okay. I mean, and then they also have
Colorado, Florida. Okay, so that's not too bad of a schedule. They miss both Oklahoma State and Kansas State. So those are 2 at the top they won't have to play or near the top. Yeah, I think they're good. I really like them. I think I would put them. Ooh, I don't know. See, I really like them, and I could see a lot of ranges. So I think I'm gonna go A above Kansas, behind Arizona.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
I was going to say A right behind Kansas. So I'm fine with Arizona. We're slightly bumping them, so it's fine.
I like UCF a little more than I like Kansas.
I think I do slightly.
But I like Arizona a little more.
Also, RJ Harvey's a dog for them. 1,400 yards is incredible. He's a semifinalist for the Doak. So they have a good rushing attack. They're going to be really good. I like UCF a lot. I think they can surprise people. They can be the team that we're going to be kind of talking about the next team that can play them in the Big 12 championship, back-to-back games.
Okay, so let's go into Utah. As many people know, they won the Pac-12 in 2021 and 2022. And after star quarterback Cam Rising tore his ACL in the Rose Bowl in 2023, he missed the entirety of last season. And Utah kind of had I would say, a revolving door of injuries and quarterbacks, and I mean, still, was able to win 8 games in the second best conference in the country last year.
Something interesting is I feel like in 2021 and 2022, Utah had the offensive firepower to be a college football playoff team, but the defense just wasn't quite there.
It was good, but it wasn't elite.
Yes.
It wasn't the
silver
typical Utah.
lining of 2023, the defense was wildly elite.
Yes.
One of the best
Extremely good.
defenses in college football.
Ranked number 19, and that is with no offensive support whatsoever.
Yes.
And that's by
And
far
now-
the best mark in the Big 12.
Instead of losing the offense and only having the defense, the offense is all coming back from injury now. So now both are being put together for one of the first times in Utah football
And I will say,
program history.
greatly improved wide receiver room.
Oh, yes.
The best in Utah's history, I think, is fair to say.
I would say no team upgraded their wide receiver room more than Utah this offseason.
Yeah.
I completely agreed.
Yes, and the fact that, the toughest conference probably week in or week out besides the SEC last year was the Pac-12. I don't really think there's really no debate about that. It's undebatable.
Yeah.
The best teams were in the Pac-12 besides the SEC. Utah still won 8 games with no passing offense at all. None. None
if
whatsoever.
you want to compare against Texas, who won the Big 12, Utah's defense did better against Washington than Texas's did.
Yes.
No, I mean,
something to consider.
Utah bringing back Cameron Rising, like we talked about, is huge. But we're also bringing back his favorite target in Brant Keithy.
Yeah.
The most underrated player in college football. He is the best tight end in college football. I don't even think it's a question.
Yeah.
His production every year is elite. He is it's incredible. I can't wait for people to watch him and see what he can do.
Yeah.
My biggest question mark is, can Cam and Cam Keithy still have that it factor after both tearing an ACL?
Yeah.
I mean, I think in terms of like with 9 years of wear and tear on their body.
Completely agree. And the defense is going to be really special. I think the biggest question mark for the defense is going to be the safety room. But I do feel like the safety room can be pretty dang good this year as well.
After graduating 2 NFL draft picks at safety, you're going to have questions. Pick Six Previews graded Utah's D-line and their linebacker core as the best in the Big 12.
Which I agree with.
I don't really think that's even up for debate. There's really not even a close second there, I wouldn't say. Like
Freddie Reed, Lander Barton are elite.
Yeah.
And also, DeMooney, he was injured. He's going to be out for season, but he's elite as well. Him coming back next year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very special program on the defensive side of the ball.
Utah really doesn't have a lot of questions to nitpick, but like Ethan said, if you were choosing something, it would probably be the safeties and it would probably be the running backs. Running back is kind of running back by committee. There's really no standout yet. A lot of young players kind of in that system. Similar thing to safety, where a lot of young players, people that haven't proven anything yet. So, if they do underachieve, that's probably going to be it. They're probably going to get passed over the top, and they're probably not going to be able to establish
Utah had the 4th rushing defense in the nation last year, allowing 83 yards per game.
Yeah.
Holding a Florida team to 13 yards.
I don't quite think that most Big 12 fans realize how different the defense Utah is bringing in is compared to what there is in the Big 12.
Yes.
Like, if you just look at any of the stats or any of the game film, it's just a completely different animal. And while Utah doesn't run that up-tempo high offense that Big 12 teams have been so successful at, they bring a totally different, it's almost a change-up with the defense.
Like, Utah has the 8th rushing defense and the 14th passing defense in the country.
Yeah.
But then you go into 2022, you can't. It's hard to. If you're just looking at 2023 coming in versus Utah, you can see them like, how the hell are this team supposed to be good? Their offense is absolutely terrible. Yeah, their defense is elite, but what I feel like a lot of Big 12 fans have not been looking at is the 2021 and 2022 season with Cam Rising, Brant Keithy, and Michael Bernard. There's a lot of people that are returning.
Going back to 2022, Utah scored 38.5 points per game, which is more than any of the Big 12 teams scored last year.
Yeah.
As well as we had a better defense last year than any of the Big 12 teams. And we're returning, if not upgraded, from 2022's offensive roster.
Yeah. For me, I think this is the first really clear S team. I think that it's the one that It's the team that has by far the least questions, I would say.
Yep.
Agreed.
It's the team that is routinely being put in at the college football playoff, top 4 bye. They're the team, the favorite to win the Big 12. They're ranked number 1 in the power ranking. They are the S tier of the Big 12 this year, and I think for the years to come.
Yeah, and there's not just continuity, there's good continuity. On offense, there's players returning that have won 2 Power 5 championships and produced at the highest level. And on defense, there's people returning that have had the number 8 rush defense and number 14th pass defense in the country.
And like simply, if you look at the rest of the conference, there is simply no one that has that level of experience. You know, there's no one that is, conference championship proven.
And
besides Utah.
you can't talk about University of Utah without talking about the head coach Kyle Whittingham and then the defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley, who is one of the best in the country. I mean, he was trying to get poached by all the Power 5 teams, USC.
Well, USC came hard after him, and Utah had to, put the head coach in waiting label back on to keep him.
And then Kyle Whittingham, like we talked about with Mike Gundy, I mean, one of the best coaches, if not, he's one of the best coaches in the country. Can really do anything to get a team riled up. And to kind of make your point about running back room, Utah's always had a good running back room. I'm confident that we'll find a guy. But that is a big question mark as well, because there is not that RB1 that Utah's always had.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who emerges, because someone always does.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Next man
I
up.
like Utah a lot because they blend proven talent with as well as bringing in new transfer additions and getting much better from last season.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard to compete with.
And just getting healthy, simply. I mean, if you don't have, crippling injuries to every single part of your roster.
I mean, Whittingham
preview,
said he'd never seen anything like this in 40 years of coaching.
Pick Six preview also said it was the worst he'd ever seen. 157 games were missed by Utah starters this year.
Yeah.
Just think of that. Just think of how wild that number.
And you play 13 games.
And you play 13
I've
games.
personally never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team have this many injuries.
I will say that is probably the only thing that's holding Utah back. Can Cam stay healthy? I mean, he's torn his ACL or gotten an injury in the final game of the season, back-to-back years.
Being 2 years removed now from that ACL tear, I just think the team's going to come in with a little bit different mentality.
I think so, too.
I think he'll be able to stay healthy.
And they do have a young offensive line, but a very good offensive line. They had some struggles early in the season with missing assignments and also holding.
Even that injuries.
But injuries definitely took away. They lost their starting center, I think, 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I think that like as far as the offensive line, we know that we lost our starting center to Texas A&M, which you have to replace him, and that is a real word there. So I'd say that's another spot you could nitpick at probably if you're looking for things to figure out.
Yeah.
But the trenches has always been a big.
I think we all agree.
Yeah, I think that is really the only S tier competitor.
Agreed.
As the Big 12 goes this year. Pick Six Previews has Utah ranked at number 8 overall in the country, and the next closest is Kansas State at number 17. So I think that's a clear tier gap there as far as Pick Six Previews agrees as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think as well that a lot of Big 12 fans are unfamiliar with Utah's roster coming into this game. They're looking at Utah overall as a program, which is very impressive. Utah's had a great run, but they're not that different from a Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, similar.
Yeah, the history and pedigree is similar.
I think the disconnect a little bit is this year specifically is probably Utah's best team ever in the history of their program.
Yeah, potentially. And that's just
I mean, depending on how far back you want to go, you can say.
I mean, you could argue 2008, 2004, 2019.
But in the Power 5 era, since Utah's been in the Pac-12, this is likely the best team they've had. This or 2019.
Yeah.
Well, and to also talk about it as well, I mean, a lot of people are talking about the history of Utah and all these things. It's similar to TCU. The reason why TCU has been so special, the reason why Utah's been so special, they haven't been a Power 5 program their whole history. There's been people talking about it all the time. We're like, you guys, you've only been a Power 5 for 15 years. Exactly. We've done what we've done.
Yeah, well, there are teams like Iowa State who have been a Power 5 for 100 years, and they have not won a conference championship or won 10 games. And Utah has done that a ton of times.
Exactly. It's one of those things where it is definitely something where it's impressive, and University of Utah's always been the first of many, first BCS bus. They're the first addition to a conference that won the conference.
Yeah,
it's just all these things, and I think Utah's going to be again. They're going to have the first head coach to win
Yeah.
a conference in 3 different conferences, first quarterback to have Power 5 conference in one in 2 different conferences. It's just one of those things where
Yeah.
it's hard to look at Utah and not think they're gonna go through the Big 12 this year. They're the team to beat.
Okay, let's move on to West Virginia. West Virginia, I think, was the big surprise.
They had a sneaky good year last year.
Yeah.
Really good year.
Well,
They
something looking
9
at the
and 4.
stats,
That's pretty good.
what would you, without looking at the stats, what do you think their rushing attack is? Their rush yards per game.
Oh, without looking at the stats,
Yeah.
I think they were good.
They were
They were
fourth in the
elite.
country.
Fourth in the
220.
per game.
That's insane. See, and I like their
That's
quarterback.
impressive.
That's extremely
Well, their
impressive.
quarterback is a really good runner
Well,
as well.
yeah,
That
I like
helped rush stats a lot.
yes, yeah. See, I think that this is a very, very dangerous team this year.
Yes.
I think that this team is being extremely slept on as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I see 21st O-line run push and 18th explosive rush. That's a little
Insane.
dangerous.
That's extremely
That will win a
dangerous.
lot of games.
Yeah, that will win a ton.
Their
of games.
defense leaves a little bit to be desired. 65th scoring defense at 26.2
Yeah.
points allowed per game.
They're
But I mean,
they're
it's not that bad.
I think they're definitely going to be an offense, kind of almost no defense team because in the position group ranks, they're out of the Big 12, out of the 16 of the Big 12, their D line is ranked 12th, their linebackers ranked 15th, and their DBs are ranked 11th. That's not exactly jumping off the page. They're going to be a great defense, but the offensive stats are good. 8th QB, which you could argue higher. Second running back room. 15th wide receiver tight end, which maybe shows why the quarterback is a little low.
Exactly.
But the first O line, that the best O line,
that's really big
by pick six.
And they have 2 really solid backs. That's a dangerous combo.
Yeah.
Oh, they got the home run back. I can't remember. I think it's
White.
Yeah, White 5'7", like just speed demon.
Yeah.
And then I can't.
And then Donald.
That's what I was gonna say. Donaldson was the home run
it's
back.
it's a really nice 1-2 punch.
And then Green, obviously, we talked about him.
Mhm.
Can run, led the nation in, I think, quarterback rushing touchdowns. I think at 15 or something like that.
That's
A
impressive.
really good just turnover ratio as well, 16-4. They could be special. They could be a really good team. They can be a team that what's going to hold them back is that
I
defense.
will say one thing that I like as well is their explosive pass is 17th.
Yeah, when you can
I mean, if you can run that good, your play action pass is going to be
I'm sure that's where
incredible.
pass is coming from.
It kind of reminds me of Oregon of old, where like they were just short pass, and also
speed run,
70-yard deep pass, and also holy crap, they just scored 14 points in 30 seconds.
There's kind of like almost like an it factor with them too, where like they like feel like I don't know, like they play over their talent.
Yeah.
That's like what I'm trying to say.
They remind me of a lot of what Utah was in reverse in the Big 12, Pac-12 for a while.
I mean, the beginning of their Pac-12,
yeah, where like their defense,
no offense, and they're kind of elite offense.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and so I think West Virginia can surprise a lot of people, but I think their defense is going to hold them back. That's my biggest question mark for me. I think defense wins championships. I have them probably.
I think offense wins championships nowadays. To be honest,
I'm gonna have them over Colorado.
That's where I was gonna put them too.
I was gonna have them behind Iowa State, so I'm fine with them being above Colorado.
Okay. There you go.
Well, that's our Big 12 ranking.
List.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good distribution.
Yeah. I think it is because that's how it's supposed to go. Kind of,
Well, it looks like a bell curve where most teams are in B.
And like frankly, like 3Ds, that's just rebuilding teams that really, like don't have a shot. It's harder to be at the pinnacle than it is to be at the bottom.
I think Texas Tech definitely has the most potential to jump up out of the bottom 6 teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely going to be the team that's like, oh, they could be pretty good. And I think the team that's has the potential to drop down as those top teams is going to be Oklahoma State. I mean, who knows what Ollie Gordon can do? Can he do it again? Yeah. And if he can't do it again, they're going to be in trouble.
We have them at 7.5
over under. Yeah,
I think people maybe like if you're a big Oklahoma State fan, take off the orange goggles for a little bit. They don't hate you in Las Vegas. There's no personal vendetta against Oklahoma.
They're just trying to make money. Yeah.
Yes, they're trying to set a fair line, and I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I think the returning production is really swaying people's opinion because it's like, yeah, they're returning most of their defense, but their defense was also terrible.
Well,
So
I think their eye test was pretty poor as well.
yeah,
I mean, I don't want to turn this into an Oklahoma State
no,
game,
no,
but I don't have like any
I
hatred
yeah,
for
I don't
them.
have any hatred for them either.
I
Yeah,
just the games I watched, I especially watched some of the BYU game. What were they doing?
yeah,
That was horrible.
I definitely think they're a top half Big 12 team. I just don't view them as a real legitimate
Yeah,
championship contender. That's like
agreed.
what I'm saying. Yeah,
I mean, losing to UCF that badly and then Southern Alabama, that's bad.
it's tough.
It's tough to look at that. Like, they're gonna be good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, I'm sure many will have disagreements. Tell us how stupid we are down in the comments, and we'll reply to you. You know, please like and subscribe.
Yeah, enlighten us on your team. If we completely
Yeah,
figure out like
exactly.
Texas Tech, they're gonna be so much better than we thought. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. You know, if you're a really big fan of Arizona State and you think they're going to win the Big 12, let us know, and
Yeah.
we'll adjust our
There's
expectations.
Arizona State fans.
Okay. Sounds good. See you guys later.